Jeremy. Wow, we're back in 2022. Great to be back with you. Happy New Year. Even though it is the last day of January, being a Monday, we delve into business matters, and there's such a hell of a lot going on this month. What with the Ukraine crisis, with rising inflation rates, with collapsing markets, with the collapse of the crypto. Chris Gibbons, good day to you. Where do we start with this?
Hello, Jeremy. Yes, good to be with you. You're absolutely right. I think the place to start would be with inflation. And that for me is right at the heart of what's going on. So could I ask you, just give me a simple definition of inflation. What exactly is inflation?
Well, basically it's too much money chasing too few goods.
Correct. Here's an apple. If you and I both have R1, the highest price that the apple can be sold for is R1. But if we both get pay increases and now have R2, then the highest price we can pay for the apple is R2. There's still only one apple though, but its price has been inflated by as much as 100%. Now, go back to 2020 when the pandemic struck. Governments around the world, led by America, started pumping money into their economies to keep them afloat. Grants, income support payments, business support payments, and some truly massive bond buying programs. At the same time, various observers and commentators asked about the inflationary effect of all of this. We were told, yes, but this is absolutely necessary to stop the whole shebang from collapsing.
Yeah, but Chris, wasn't that true?
Well, it was, but it was based on the premise that we'd get the pandemic under control quite quickly, and shortly after that, everything would just return to normal. The pandemic's still very much with us, still distorting economies. Look at tourism, for example. In this country, many governments still handing out cash, trying to bring their cash handout programs to an end. And in the center of this web is, as usual, America, whose economy grew 6.9% in the last quarter of last year. Inflation there now running at 7%, its highest level in 40 years. Fed Chair Jay Powell has announced an end to the bond buying program and has not ruled out a series of interest rate hikes across the rest of this year to start mopping up some of that cash that is sloshing around. Our own Reserve Bank's also worried about inflation at 5.9% in December. It's just hiked the repo rate to 4%, the second quarter of 1% hike in 2 months. More expected as the year develops. We don't have 6.9% growth. We're expecting well less than 2% this coming year, and much the same for the year after. Now that's roughly a 4% gap between inflation and growth, which means that this year, South Africans are going to be around 4% less well off.
Okay, you say that this has unexpected and unpleasant results.
No question, the US Fed's warning about choking off the easy money is what's behind the very sharp drop in tech stocks in the US. The Nasdaq down 12% so far this year, the S&P 500 down 7%. This is the worst start to a year for those indices ever. Think about this one. In 1 week alone this month, Amazon's founder Jeff Bezos lost $20 billion. According to its promoters, Bitcoin is supposed to be immune to all of this. Ha ha ha. Bitcoin has lost $600 billion since its record high in November of last year. The entire crypto sector has dropped $1 trillion. The price of oil back above $90 for the first time since 2014. We're already feeling that at our petrol pumps with more bad news to come, and that will also push inflation here. And the price of fertilizer surging worldwide. It's gone up threefold in the last 18 months. That is threatening food security across Africa and will also again be inflationary here.
And atop all of this, a Russian threat to invade Ukraine.
Well, yes, that is a massive risk factor, Jeremy. It's part of the reason the oil price is rising so far, of course. But the key element there is that Russia effectively has its foot on Europe's throat. It supplies 40% of the EU's gas. Cut that off, well, prices have already shot up in places like the UK, as much as 90% in some case. Europe without Russian gas just doesn't function. You'd have heard, I'm sure, about this gas pipeline Nord Stream 2 from Russia under the Baltic Sea, direct into Germany, bypassing Ukraine, going direct into northern Germany. Well, its critics have said all along that this is not just about selling Russian gas to Europe, but about setting up a strategic control mechanism for Moscow. Ridiculous, say its proponents. It'll never happen. Well, it's very clear that it certainly is happening, and the Germans find themselves in a very tricky position.
Well, I mean, rising inflation rates, rising interest rates and inflation affects us here too. And again, it doesn't seem to be just the obvious.
Rising food and fuel prices, bond and credit card repayments, all of that, you're absolutely right. But consider this. Inflation hits the poor hardest. We know this. And we have tens of millions of people who fall into that category. It's why we're talking about extending the current £350 a month COVID payment, making it into a permanent basic income grant. But just this week, the President's own economic advisors, the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, sent him a report saying no way you can do this. South Africa simply cannot afford it. One of the reasons, the country's already up to its eyeballs in debt. We've just taken on another $750 million from the World Bank. We're cap in hand looking for another 800 million. Yes, we are getting a good deal, but every time interest rates go up, we pay just a little bit more. There's a little bit less for everything else. Schools, hospitals, housing, anything remotely resembling a basic income grant. The Advisory Council, by the way, very clear about what South Africa needs to do to fix this economy. Sort out the energy crisis, make dramatic improvements to water, transport and port services. We have, of course, heard those nostrums again and again, but it's abundantly clear the ANC does not have either the skills nor the will to sort the mess out.
Well, perhaps we should just hand over the country to one of the superstar business organizations like a Shoprite.
Many a true word spoken in jest, Jeremy. Amidst the ongoing pandemic and including the July rioting and looting, Shoprite delivered sales growth of 10% for the last 6 months of last year. No less than 231 of its stores were hit during the riots, but despite that, Shoprite managed to open 57 new ones. In fairness, furniture sales at its House and Home and OK Furniture units were down 6.5%, with the July unrest playing its part. Sales in shops in Angola, Zambia, Mozambique, all up 8.4%, sales locally up 11.3%. It's a very, very impressive performance. And what's more, and I hear this from a couple of sources, Shoprite is getting its food sales mix so right that it's beginning to eat into the sales of its high-end competitor, Woolworths. Eat into? Get it?
An important development over the weekend, that particular High Court ruling, Chris.
Yes, this was the legal challenge by losing bidder DNG Energy to block car power ships being awarded the bulk of the 2,000 megawatt emergency power procurement program. DNG alleged corruption, but Judge Joseph Raulinga ruled that it had failed in its bid simply because it had not met a myriad of qualification criteria. Now, Raulinga's decision brings the car power ships closer to South Africa's ports, which may or may not be a good thing. Critics of the deal say it's alarmingly expensive and ask how what is supposed to be an emergency fix to the country's power crisis comes with a 20-year contract. Now, the power ships themselves run on natural gas, which is only marginally greener than coal, and as the Europeans are discovering, as we've mentioned, subject to considerable fluctuations in price. It's not a done deal yet, though. The Car Power Ships Consortium still has to get past our Environment Minister, Barbara Creasy.
Finally, another big winner in Apple.
No question. Amid a global chip shortage, supply constraints, blocked shipping and clogged ports, Apple has delivered yet again. Record revenues in the fourth quarter of last year on the back of a wave of new products. The iPhone 13, Apple Watch 7, updated Macs, sales of Macs up 25% to $10.9 billion. It is a share that is slightly more expensive than Nasdaq's multiples. It has a PE of 26.7, but top Morgan Stanley analyst Katie Huberty, quoted by Bloomberg, rates it as her top pick for 2022. Apple's now very firmly back on track to hit a market cap of $3 trillion. It hit that mark earlier this month, but then fell back as part of the broader tech sell-off in the US. And no, I've said this before, despite being a devoted Apple user since the 2E back in 1984, it's a long time ago, Apple 2E, I still don't own any Apple shares.
Chris Gibbons, for your input, thank you very much. Nice to speak to you once again. Tomorrow, don't forget, we will be talking matters legal, and that will be with our resident advocate Lance Brogden. Until then, cheerio, bye.